place that light is afraid to touch, where the monsters beneath your bed and hiding behind your fear refuse to travel. Do you dare? Is your mind capable of the sights you will see? Is your body prepared for the sounds you will hear? Is your spirit up to the challenge of what you soon may feel? If so, have a seat with the seductress of the dark, Sarah Terror, the Sultan of Satan, Chunky Larry, and the Clown Prince of Fear, Arlie Grind. This is the Ghoul Kids Table.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to the table. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. I'm your host. My name is Chunky Larry, and I'm a couple ghouls shy, but I have a special ghoul with me at the table. She is a writer, director, producer, and actor. Also a friend of mine, and it's always fun when you can interview a friend and not butcher her name. She is the director of one of the hardest to pronounce horror films that I've ever fucking seen. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Michelle Nessk. How you doing today?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very good, thank you.
The film that we're going to be talking about today, I feel like it requires a certain level of brain power just to say it correctly. and I know that she's referred to this as kind of like a Rorschach test of a film, in the sense that it's your observations that kind of say a lot more about you than what you say for yourself. And so I feel like the title itself is a Rorschach test of, can you say it correctly? So I'm going to try it, and then I'm going to let her fucking correct me if I'm wrong. So you are the director of Unilateralis.
Unilateralis.
Son of a bitch.
Or Ophiocordyceps unilateralis.
There it is.
Which is how I learned how to say it from watching like those National Geographic videos about it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, lifelong obsession with that one.
And so we've talked a little bit kind of before this conversation got going about what the film is for you, and that it's essentially a ground zero for the work that you're doing. And I just kind of wanted to start off there and talk about the genesis of this project and what it means in the grand scheme of what you have in mind.
That's a lot of big questions. That's a lot of questions in a sentence. Let's see here. Well, first, I do want to go back. I don't really consider the title to be like a Rorschach thing, because it's the whole litmus isn't about a person's intellect so much as a person's safety value. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I can't think of a better word for it than like the value of safety, like how much they value the safety of others and themselves. And so you'll find, like, watching the movie with people, you'll find some people walk out and they will completely and totally victim blame. It is a rape revenge film. It is a conspiracy film. It is a zombie film. Like, and overall, it's a lot of social commentary. And, someone's like, I don't understand why she put herself in that position when it comes to the character Abigail Wallace. Mm. I think it tells you, like, this person might not be the best judge of character. This person might not be someone that you break down with on the side of the road. You know what I mean? Like, this person just might not be it. And so it's like, I like the idea of there being films that help you stay safer in life. Mm. For me, the original slashers, I had a babysitter and her husband. I would get to watch like Friday the 13th, you know, and Halloween, but mostly he was in the Friday the 13th because camp counselors. Yeah, da. And I remember one time. Am I allowed to curse? I've been
Of course, of fucking
all right,
course.
cool. All right, all right. So basically, like I'm sitting there, and this might sound horrible to some people, but like for me, it was a really great learning lesson. But he was like, "Yeah, kill that bitch, fucking slut," and you know, and I'm little, and I think I was in like Florida at the time, you know, and and I remember like getting really mad at him and being like, I got in trouble for saying fuck you because I was like, fuck you. Like, no, she deserves to live. He's the motherfucker who should get it. And I got in trouble, of course, yada, yada, yada. But that whole, like, I understood then and there at that very young age, like, this guy sucks. You know what I mean? And then, like,
Yeah.
you grow up and then, like, you hear guys, like, in some women, you hear people where they're like, oh yeah, kill that slut, or oh, kill that guy, he's too effeminate, and look at him scream. And to me, it's like one, like we should just enjoy everybody getting slaughtered because it's a fucking horror movie.
Yeah.
But when personal bias comes into play, you know, and you start making excuses for the terrible things that happen to these characters, that tells you about a person. Like horror movies are the perfect litmus for that all around. And I wanted to make a very specific type, you know. Now as far as everything that went into it, I first started writing it as a film titled Endure, which was an apocalypse film that had multiple sub stories in it. And one of the sub stories was O Unilateralis. We were filming, I was very green, you know, at that point. Like I had done some stuff, but I was green. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of like running and gunning, you know, but it was fun, you know, all the same. But uh, some things didn't work out there, and like the footage ended up getting lost because I was not the DP. I'm still, you know, very good friends with the DP today. He now does like a lot of commercial work, you know, very specifically like for like local stores. So he's a great guy, very talented. Um, but yeah, there's some stuff happened because he was also green at the time, and you know the footage was lost, and I remember being just very disillusioned about it. And then I made The Devil's Fool, which premiered at Bleedingham and at Crypticon Seattle. And then I was like, I'm gonna go back to it. And then then the Miami zombie incident happened. And before the Miami zombie, there was the CDC had a chemical spill at the international airport in Florida, and hazmat had to come and do the cleanup. And that was roundabouts where the Miami zombie incident happened, and the anesthetician incident, and the guy who was a Jersey Devil. I mean, this part I don't know for sure as far as this one, but the Jersey Devil, apparently he was also in Florida before he was in Jersey, and he was the guy who literally started tearing into his own body and using his organs as weapons against the cops. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't, but it sounds fucking metal as hell.
It was fucking crazy. And like yeah, no, that was crazy. And then there was the man from Poland. He was flying back to Poland, and he was at the airport during the time of the chemical spill. He gets home, he sits down for dinner with his family, and he was acting kind of out of it the whole day. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he leapt across the table and started eating his wife's face in front of his family. And like, what's interesting was these articles were coming out, and then they were getting pulled back. And then like there were the rash incidents that in Miami, roundabouts where the chemical spill was, there was a bus that where the people developed rashes. They were at a game, and like hazmat had to come to the school and to the bus, and like there were a whole bunch of weird things. And then they were like blaming bath salts for it. And then like the incidents that were that were, actually reported upon, not immediately deleted, there was absolutely no evidence of basalt. So it's just this weird big mystery. And I think that's very interesting. But my brain was like, well, what if it was like Ophiocordyceps? Because there was this whole thing where there were certain strains that scientists believe were able to affect deer, which was a species jump into mammals. And so so that was really, and they were like, we're hypothesizing, we're gonna give you more information as we go on. And then they ended up I don't know what happened with that, because like when you go to look it up, there's some stuff and then it kind of like stops, just abruptly. And then there's the pickup of them talking about mad deer disease,
Yeah.
and so it's like I don't know if that's like, they rolled out cordyceps and maybe it was that, or what happened there, because there's a missing link there. But I do know that one followed the other. But I found the whole thing interesting, and I didn't want to let the story go, so I started writing, more. And then about 2014, took it off of, the page and started actually applying filming at the end of 2014. Was it 2014? Yes, it was 2014. Got the first establishing shots for the film, and then all through 2015 filmed, and yeah, and it premiered at Crypticon Seattle in 2016, and it was really exciting. The story itself takes place in 2012, and it's about three college students who are going camping, and they're going to Oregon in the Blue Mountains. The filming was really interesting because like there were these almost not some natural disasters, but like there was in the Blue Mountains there was forest fire. So like it was very smoky everywhere, and like they had they had brought in prison inmates, so a lot of the areas were encampments for the prison inmates for putting out the fire. And I remember reception was really bad out there, and but the inmates were really kind and very polite, and when we would see them, they were sweet, and so it was surreal, because you could see the mountains on fire, and yeah, but it's a beautiful place out there. It really truly is. And then Skycomish filming out there for the street scenes.
The empty town.
So yeah. So the town was actually empty, and it was because they had a snowstorm, and it knocked a bunch of trees and everything else, and knocked off roads. And so they were this rented it before then and set for the day, right? And then once it was known that once I had heard that was happening, I was like, okay, well, what we got to do is we got to bring any extra blankets, any extra pillows, any extra jackets, any extra anything warm, and like some food and some candles and some water, and we'll bring that to them as like a thank you, because like had already rented the town, and they were so accommodating, like just really good people there, truly good people. And so we were able to get those items to them. They were so sweet. And from there, like it was a strange thing, knowing that everyone was like, there was a weird kind of disconnect happening, and I was like trying not to lose the reality of the things happening around us. Like, like as far as we knew, like, we'd be roughing it out in the forest with our pre-charged gear and our, ready to eat items. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like fully set. So like this whole like life altering, life threatening thing was something that was like prepared for, because it was like, yeah, we're gonna be in the mountains, right? But for these other people, this was their home. You know what I mean? So like while we're running out there being silly, goofy guys, they're inside with their candles and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and their staples and rationing out communal food and candle. Like it was kind of a weird thing, and I was trying to figure out like ethically where this was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was strange, and I still think about that a lot. In the sense of like when those things happen, like if I were in my town and some silly goofy guys were making their movie, and we're all like, man, I hope we don't freeze to death tonight, kind of thing. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was
It,
like the same place, but two distinctly different realities. And that's why I didn't want to go there empty handed, because like I wanted to at least like help, because they were helping me so much.
and it really does speak to the level of soul that someone as yourself has as opposed to other filmmakers, which is something that I definitely want to talk about, because I think that um I had mentioned it kind of on social media uh when I was talking about rape revenge, and I purposefully did not really weigh in my opinion because I wanted to hear what other people said. And it's interesting to hear the reactions of people when you ask them what they think or how they feel about rape revenge films. And a lot of the times, the go to answer is that as long as the punishment is justifying of the crime. But I, I look at a lot of rape revenge films. Specifically, the most notable is I Spit on Your Grave, which is just a mean spirited film that ends up with the comeuppance happening at the tail end of the film. But it's the rape portion of that film is
Takes up a good part.
it's excessive, it's
Yeah.
fetishized, and it's uncomfortable how sexualized the rape element is in a lot of these films. And I think that that's largely due to the fact that it is male filmmakers making these stories who have no concept or conscience as to the story that they're telling, and they justify it ultimately with, well, she's going to get her power back by destroying these people, and that somehow makes it better, and it doesn't. At least to me, I don't feel like the the torture or violence that occurs following that act matches the brutality and the heinousness of that attack. And it's always done again excessively and um sexualized, and it shouldn't be. And I felt like, because this film has a very uncomfortable scene that you had to act in, and it's, the screen is just you, it's just you in that moment and having to deal with that. And it never feels like a flirtation, it feels like an assault, and it feels more so like an assault than a lot of these other assaults, in the sense that it starts off with, I just want to hold your hand, and it pushes from that point. But it's like it began long before that point. That's just where it happens. And that it starts with those jokes, him making these sexual jokes and testing the waters, and uh, all of that feels so fucking painfully real. And it's, I guess what I want to know is, um when you're coming up with the story and you're writing the story, you have to be able to put yourself in that place to tell that story. And as a writer and as a filmmaker and as a woman, you have these different sides of your responsibility for that story. And I just want to know, kind of mentally for you, what it was to have to tell that story.
Well, it's really interesting how that question was phrased. Let's see here. First off, yes, I am AFAB. I was born assigned female at birth, and I am gender fluid. So he, they, she all apply. So I have not been misgendered once here, and I appreciate that. It's kind of impossible because fluidity. Um, but it doesn't deny, like, I don't deny the fact that, like, just to be quite frank, I don't feel like I owe anyone androgyny. And I put so much into my work that in the way I present myself, like clothes I wear and the way I make myself look, I'm kind of lazy there. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're good. We're ready. You know? Um, so my experience is very, I guess, woman targeted. Like that is my lived experience as far as like how the world has treated me.
Mm.
It was easy to write that scene because I think like most AFAB individuals, I've lived that scene in a variety of ways, from like a very young age on into adulthood. Um, and it's what I personally I enjoy the rape revenge genre, but I also like I acknowledge when I'm watching the film, like, ah, this is a fucking dude's gaze right here. He's like, look at her butt, you know and like, oh, yeah, she's arching her back. Like, I'm sorry, but you know what you're not doing, you're not arching your back like you're like a cat. No, you're probably curling yourself inwards like a mollusk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, get away. Sorry. um, so it's I wanted to make something that felt real, because I wanted it to. I didn't want to romanticize it,
Yeah.
because like when you're watching something and you're watching these rapists do these things in these films, it's romanticized. And then you have people who are like, I can almost understand why. I mean, I feel bad, but that was kind of hot. And then it's like really uncomfortable being around those people, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make it fucking clear. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's a very sharp dot on the I and a slash on that T. I wanted it to be the bird's eye, naked fucking view of what an offender actually sees. Any romanticization, any kind of way to make it sexy to them, it doesn't matter, because what's happening is what's real. And what's before your eyes is what's real. And that's why I didn't want him to put the camera down to the side or anything like that. I wanted it from like, as in like it's in his head and his eyes, because it's his gaze that we are on the journey with, unfortunately. And I think that's what makes it scary. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Because, you know, but I hope that what it was meant to convey is received as such from viewers. And it's I mean, I had a super fan, and like from the very first thing I ever presented at CryptoCon Seattle, she greeted me. She was like, "I'm such a fan of your shorts," and she gave me flowers and homemade cookies. And from there on, she would be there every year, like clockwork, right? With flowers and cookies and sometimes balloons and praise, and like telling me that I was going to do so much. And then 2016, I premiered Unilateralis, and like she was so excited, and she was like, "I'm bringing my whole family," and she was a wonderful Latina woman, and it was really cool. There's always something very magical when I don't know how to say this right, but when your own people embrace you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, it's so warm and loving here, you know. But she watched a Unilateralis, and she was so mad, and in front of an entire packed auditorium, she yelled at me and told me that that wasn't a film, and that I should never make another film again, and I should feel terrible. And I did put disclaimers, you know what I mean, like caution, scenes of violence, smoking, drugs, rape, you know what I mean, like. But I don't think she expected it to be that
raw.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I have not seen her since, and I miss her. She was she is a beautiful woman, and no matter what, I hope that she is just having the best and happiest days. But it was there were a few instances like that where like a lot of support that I no longer had after they viewed this film. So it's I always get a little nervous, when someone watches it, because I'm just like, oh God, and I'm very point blank, like, hey, it has this in it. You know what I mean? Like, I never would let anyone go in blind for that. Like, I put CW warnings on like everything.
Yeah.
So it's I think everybody is going to have their thoughts on it, and every thought is right for the most part. If a person says that there's something wrong with me for making it, they could be right. PTSD is a motherfucker.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, if someone says that it helps them or is cathartic, I know for me, rape revenge films are very cathartic. They're one of my favorite subgenres next to zombies, like truly. And, if it helps someone, that's good too. And if it entertains someone for the right reasons, that's good. And if it helps people by watching the others who are with them and what they say about the characters of Troy and Daniel and Abigail, well, that's the overall point. You know what I'm saying?
And so I want to talk a little bit about the characters, specifically the dynamic with Keith and Troy, and Keith almost being an enabler for Troy's behavior.
Oh, he is absolutely an enabler. It's I'm always interested when I did an interview a while back, and they're very sweet people. They are. But they didn't really catch that Keith was
he was just a good guy to them, right?
Yeah, he was just a good guy. Like he the whole thing just kind of slipped under the radar. But there's a few things to take into account there. Like they're turned into each other.
Yeah. So I feel that there's a semblance of guilt that is associated with Keith and him not recognizing who Troy was, even though it's very plainly there. And at first he thinks it's playful, and it's almost as if Troy is gaslighting Keith, but also to the extent that these things are not well hidden that he's displaying. These are predatory tactics that are very obvious for anybody with a pair of eyes and ears. And you unfortunately see this a lot, especially in social circles where there's somebody that's just a little too flirtatious or playful, or they say these things that are intended as a barometer for how far can they push boundaries. And the scene specifically where they're in where they start shooting the film, because this is again all Troy's idea. Let's make a movie. Let's have her, let's do a rape revenge movie. It's all done under the guise of wanting to push the envelope with this very unassuming person who the only movie she'd ever seen is Reefer fucking Madness. So she doesn't understand where he's going with it, and Keith does, but he still allows it to happen. So he's culpable just by his inability to, step up and do anything to stop this from happening. And he when he does object, it's always kind of passive objection. And it's not until he sees what's going on physically happening that he does anything to actually stop anything. And when he's beating Troy up, it's out of anger for Troy, but more out of anger for himself.
Yeah.
That was my observation of that situation, is that it was less that he was mad at Troy and more that he was mad at himself for recognizing these things, and in spite of recognizing them, still allowing them to continue.
Yeah. It's so Keith is a conundrum, but he's a very real person to me, in that he represents a quote that I heard a long time ago, and I can't attach it to the name because I don't know who originally said it, but good men everywhere benefit from the actions of bad men. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute
sense. And so that's Keith. I think between that being an inherent state for him, having Troy right next to him gives him this instant contrast, not only to the outside world, but also for himself, because he can be like, look at that guy. He's awful. Not like me. I'm great. I would never say that. Hey, haven't you ever heard of feminism, guy? That kind of thing. And I think that is Keith, that he's not, at least in my eyes, I've never seen Keith as a good guy. I've seen him as an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him as a provider, because without Keith using his good guy contrast, right, in comparison to Troy, he wouldn't feel so confident of luring someone, right?
Yeah.
But we also have to think about, what kind of person was Keith drawn to? What kind of person was that? It's a sheltered girl who has no basis of comparison. She has nothing learned on the subject. Literally, even that, like his whole, like, he obviously went after her, like he spouts all this feminist stuff, right? But does he warn her about his friend? No, he doesn't warn her about his friend. He doesn't prepare her for anything. He doesn't even actually talk to her, if you notice. Like, it's all like lots of grandstanding. Like, look at me being a feminist. Look at me doing this. But every single thing that he addresses, even when it comes to Abby, is to his male friend or to the open air. And the only point that he does address Abby is when he is mocking her for being so sheltered. But if her being sheltered was an issue, why was he trying to be with her?
And you can even look at the conversation that they have before Abby joins them, where he's being asked by Troy, you into her, you want to fuck her, and it's like he doesn't look at it like, dude, that's kind of gross. She's just somebody I think is cool. It's not that. It's because
maybe
he does look at her as a thing, as oh, look at what I brought. Troy brought the weed, Keith brought the girl, and it's just it's a really uncomfortable dynamic that exists inside of the car, and a lot of the times it's done through the placement of where they're sitting. She's in the back seat along for the ride. At first she's up front with him, and it's almost like she's being presented, but then for the rest of the journey she's in the back, and she's just being taken on this journey by these guys who have no good intentions. Neither one of them have good intentions, because Keith tells you right up in the front that, yeah, I want to fuck this girl. And it's not, I see something really special in this person. It's, I want to fuck this girl.
Cherry poppin' daddy shit.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it does really, it is painted in a way that most people will say, oh no, he's a good guy, and he is kind of standing up for her, but he isn't. He never really is. He again, when Troy's giving her drinks and giving her drugs, he doesn't say, no dude, don't do that.
Nope.
He's like, oh, I'm not in charge of her, she can do what she wants, even though he knows what the inevitability of that action is. And then there's the question of, and this is going to sound weird, maybe it won't, toxic masculinity, in the sense of, is it a man's place to say, no, she should not be doing that, she doesn't, like, speaking for her instead of allowing her to speak for herself.
It's when he does try to speak up for her, he does speak for her.
And so
and and I think that's the only area where, like, he serves any good purpose, is when he does try to get in the way of her abiding, and she's like, nah, that's like why I'm here, you guys.
Yeah.
Like, and so, like, I think that's like the only area where he shows any kind of respect. But I don't think, like, it's like you said, I don't think he was showing respect to her to be respectful. I think because in that instance, showing her that respect was to his benefit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's it, it's almost kind of sad because like it's you want her to have these great experiences, you know, and like being sheltered from the world and being told that the world is a terrible place, and then being like, well, it doesn't seem that bad, you know, and I want to have these experiences because I'm in fucking college, and you know what I'm saying.
And the conversation that they have in the empty town when they're talking about her just being curious about what sex is.
Yeah,
It's her genuinely being curious, but Troy looking at it as a flirtation.
yeah, it's well, he's the one who brought it up, you know,
Yeah.
and like at that point, so like when you're in a situation, and this is just my personal experience with it, is like when you're in a situation, turning it scientific can often get you out of it,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. So it's like because it gets there are sticky situations. So it's like from in my mind when she was like asking these questions, um, one, she was behaving less cornered, you know, but then Troy kept on trying to take it outside of the scientific, you know, curiosity of it and trying to, you know, I think the character Troy could have been more aggressive had she not have been asking these questions. Like he probably would have cornered her then and there, for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
And so her asking these questions is a survival tactic, you know, that she didn't even know she had. But um, there's the commentary on Abby is that as a woman, she's been groomed by society from day one to be accommodating and to be gentle and to not offend. And if you're mean, then something bad will happen to you. And if you're dismissive, something bad will happen to you. So I think also like it's not that she knew how to deal with him. I think it was more like in the sense of like, oh, this guy is being weird and aggressive. I should be extra nice to him and interact with him even more because I am literally cornered right now, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the only point that we actually see her put her foot down, you know, is at that point, which is you know, there's this like little like, you know what I mean? Like, go. And you know, and then like the next day it's like there's something completely different in her eyes. At least that's what I hope for the viewer to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like uh she went to sleep with a lot of realizations, you know,
Yeah.
with everything that transpired like the night before and then that day, like that morning. And so like at that point, the world is a different place for her, you know, and I feel like it's like a Jenga tower.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, like Troy keeps on pulling these pieces out of her Jenga tower until everything comes to a head. And then, like, and then someone else comes into it, you know, and that just completely obliterates it. And then Troy basically gets to, you know, scatter the pieces that are already on the ground, you know, and so it's like deconstructing Abigail was very hard because as a character I wanted to just envelop her, you know, in like a cocoon and keep her safe, but she is the sacrificial lamb
Yeah.
in the story. And I hope, you know, because I really loved her as a character, so I hope that her sacrifice will help someone who is sitting down next to someone else, you know. So I don't know. It's I mean, in one hand, I made a movie and like God, I hope people like it, and then in the other hand, I put so much of myself into it, blood, sweat, tears, years. Um, And so I hope it does something more, in its existence.
Well, one of the things that you are doing with the film that I think is very important to point out is you are using it as a way to gain money for domestic violence shelters. So I wanted you to kind of talk about that for a little bit, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. I'm actually I'm really proud of it at this point. I have lost track of how much money it has raised. I know solid figures from events, and then I have it set up where like if people know which area, I will only do it in one area
Mm-hmm.
of social media. So it's up to the individual to figure that out because again, I only have energy for work and family. Um, you know,
Yeah.
but with proof of a donation to your local DV shelter or proof of a donation to a DV survivor shelter in Sacramento, California, they're called My Sister's House, of at least $25. Then that gives the individual a downloadable digital copy of the film themselves, and it's the original format. The edited format, which is a change in the soundtrack, um, just one song difference in the soundtrack. That one plays at various film festivals, sometimes as a granted per diem, and they donate that amount of money to a local DV shelter, or they, or it wins awards and gets to play, which is really cool. But the most important ones to me are the events that are to benefit DV survivors and having a Unilateralis play at those theaters for that. It's raised a lot of money, and I hope it raises more. I don't like, uh, just for my own personal reasons, I do not like having any money involving that film touching my hands.
Yeah.
So I have turned down various distributors, and I was considering one specific distributor. They are friends of mine, but I did not want to be the one to have to handle any of the money at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't. I wanted to go straight to the shelters, so that's how I've been doing it. And everybody's been pretty understanding about it, and so it's. I hope that whatever whatever it is for any individual who watches it, I hope that at the very least it inspires them to contribute to their local community and help survivors.
And we spoke at the beginning that, Unilateralis. Did I do it right that time? Unilateralis.
Unilateralis.
Unilateralis is ground zero for a much larger world that you plan on building on. And I'm just curious, do you have anything that you're working on to branch off of that?
Oh yeah, every film I have made is part of that universe. So if you see repeat faces, repeat characters, repeat locations, there's a reason for it. So let's see. Some of my favorites in the universe I made with Tanya Atomic. She's amazing. She did Manos Returns. She also did the soundtrack for Bikini Gorilla. She is cool as fuck, and she runs Rougarou Productions. She is like, she's one of the loves of my life. I swear to God, she's amazing. And let's see here. We made Just a Prick, and that one stars Tristan Risk and Weston Halverson, who at the time was the lead guitarist for the band My Life with the Throat Cult. I grew up on those guys, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, Weston's a good guy. And then we made 333 Illuminati, which stars Deborah Lamb, which was super cool because how the fuck Beverly Hills Vamp starring in our movie, playing our mom. Like, that was cool as hell.
And Dead Ringer, by the way, not for nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, did she really get her mom? Neither here nor there.
Right?
Yeah, no, Dead Ringer is amazing.
She looks like both of our moms
Yeah.
in it. Like, yeah, and Tanya and I both look like sisters, which is funny because Tanya is Korean and Irish, and I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican. And Deborah, I'm not sure. You know, it's yeah. But Deborah's a sweet, sweet woman. And like more people should book her and stuff because my goodness. Like, oh, what a powerhouse. She deserves all the fucking awards, all the fucking roles. Like, people sleeping on her are ridiculous. Like, put her in your fucking movies and pay her because, my God, best choice I ever made. Like, love her. And let's see here. Yeah. And then I made 333 before that. 333 came out at the same time as Unilateralis. And that one I made with my friend Nate from the band System 7, who is the main band on the soundtrack for Unilateralis, which I'm really proud about. I work with a lot of bands. And the main soundtrack for 333 is My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. And yeah, the story takes place out of My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult concert, you know, and so I was really excited about that one. Another short I made was Hell, and that's part of the universe. And then The Devil's Fool is also part of the universe. Like everything I've ever made. And what's up next is Tanya and I are still working on the full feature version of 333 Illuminati. We kind of got held back because of, you know, the plague. And we have, yeah.
That pesky plague.
Yeah. And then we have the sequel to 333 Illuminati, which is 333 Illuminatier. And and that one again we were supposed to have done by now, but again, the plague. So, you know, there's been a lot of holdups with that. The plague. And let's see. Oh, I also made Mother's Day Cicadas with Barbara Magnolfi. Barbara Magnolfi was
Love
Olga
her.
and Dario Argento Suspiria.
Yeah, and in Sisters of Ursula.
She plays my mother. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love Sister of Ursula.
Me too.
Yeah. So Barbara played my mother in that one, and it was a lot of fun. The short version came out. I'm also working on the full feature, but again, the plague, you know. So I've managed to really flesh out a lot of my universe, and I don't know how to brag or humble brag, but I do know how to state facts. So they've all won awards, all of them, multiple awards. Yeah, I had a few wins at Cannes International Film Festival, which isn't Festival de Cannes, but it's one of their branch offs. So I thought that was really cool. I have to update my IMDb.
So what's going on with Endure? Are we going to circle back to that?
Yeah, it's Endure. Okay, so everything I've made, I've had no budget, like no budget. And I have been so lucky to have the people involved that I have, you know, and the people involved that I've had involved were, it was like, oh, my tummy is growling. I'm so sorry. It sounds like a feral cat. My God.
It's
Okay.
the reefer madness. Don't worry. You're gonna rob a bank now.
But like when I met Barbara Magnolfi, we were both guests at the same convention, and our tables were somewhat near, but I remember just being like awestruck because I wrote Mother's Day cigarras when I was about 9 years old, and I would sneak up at night to watch horror movies on Canadian TV because at about 9, we moved to Washington State, and Washington State had Canadian TV. And Canadian TV had butts, balls, boobs, penises, vaginas, and F bombs.
All the good stuff.
So, of course, I was like, fuck yeah, boobies, So it was like, and I snuck up one night, and it was a whole like double boom, boom, boom. And it was Sister of Ursula and Suspiria. And like Suspiria in particular really grabbed me. Like that movie had me in a chokehold. I wanted to be a ballerina so fucking bad because of that movie. Nobody knew why all of a sudden, but I wanted it.
Is that why you started taking dance?
I did, yeah. Yeah. That was why. But I wrote a script. Yeah. It's the influence. Barbara Magnolfi is out of my life. And Dario Argento. It's just like, wow. And so like I wrote the story and I was little and and I imagined Olga, you know what I mean, as like the mother. And then like Barbara had her agent, who was also my agent, contact me and was like, Barbara wants to say hi to you at the convention.
This wasn't Jason,
you
was it?
You guys should say hi. No. Wait. No, I don't think so. I'm sorry. I have a few.
Yeah.
I wish you didn't ask me that because I'm so bad. No, it wasn't Jason. No, it wasn't. I'm just joking. I know exactly who it was. But anyways, so we ended up getting connected that way. And I was really excited. And basically she was like, I really want to work with you. I love your work. If you have something down the line, just please let me know because I want to be in something of yours. And, and like, she made me feel like maybe I could do stuff, like, good job,
Yeah.
So I was really excited. And I was like, well, actually, I wrote a script for you when I was 9. You want to star in it? And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. Do you want to be in my movie? I wrote it for you when I was 9. Come be in it. It's going to be great, And she was like, okay, let's do that. And so we ended up doing it, and she was amazing. Amazing. Like, I ended up filming it back to back. So did 333 Illuminati with Deborah the day before. And then Mother's Day Cicadas with Barbara the very next day, because we were only in LA for a heartbeat, because we were there for a film festival because our movies were playing.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. And we were like, oh, it's, I had this idea that I wanted to do a real world immersion horror movie of like found footage, but in this case, no retakes. Like the shots we get are the shots we stick with. If we get the lines wrong, so too bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was something that I wanted to do for a while. And so that was 333 Illuminati. So everything in that was one shot takes, no retakes, no editing, nothing. Just completely raw dogging reality within a film setting. So
love it.
I don't know. It was so much fun. Like, oh my God. Like it reinvigorated my love for filmmaking on like a whole new level. Yeah. So it's I'm really looking forward to making more stuff, but most especially I'm really looking forward to continuing on with making stuff with Tanya, because She just makes me so happy. Like filming, like there's such a mutual love for it that it's almost like, I don't know. I feel like a 6-year-old. You know what I mean? Like a couple of 6-year-olds, and we're like, tee, tee, and we're getting it done. I don't know, but yeah, I'm excited. Oh, and a year ago, I did a music video with Dylan Mars Greenberg. I don't know if you know who she is. She is Lloyd Kaufman's muse for the latest Trauma films like Shakespeare's Shitstorm. She is fucking phenomenal and absolutely wonderful. I just love her so much. And she actually directed the music video for my song The Hex. And so I'm so excited about it. We did it a year ago. I just haven't released it yet because
the plague. We'll just say
the plague. Yeah, the plague. But yeah, so it's I need to get around to releasing that, and hopefully it will be well received because Dylan, she is phenomenal and she did such a great job. So,
well,
yeah.
I love it. We are going to start getting out of here. So before we do, I want you to just kind of point people in the directions of things that they should be looking for you at, social medias, any projects you want to work on, anything like that. The floor is yours.
Oh, I mean, I'm kind of just like everywhere, man. If you type in Zeemonsta, Zeemonsta, that might pop me up, or Michelle Nessk or Nessk, that might pop me up. I'm just kind of like everywhere, man. But beware. I'm pretty much like just like on TikTok. Like I'm gonna post or say something, whatever. I'm not so great at marketing. I'm just like, honestly, I'm using the internet to shit post. You know, that's where I'm at in everything in life. So if you're cool with that and the occasional industry talk, then you might like my social media pages. But if you're not, then don't follow me because I will bore you.
I will attest, her TikTok is fucking wonderful. I had we were having a talk, and I ended up in mid talk. I was like going through your stuff, and I was just like, dude, she's fucking great. But if you guys are here just for Michelle, which I do not blame you, but you've enjoyed the conversation, you want to find out more about us, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can start by liking us on Facebook. Facebook.com/Ghoul Kids Table Podcast. Following us on Twitter @Ghoul Kids Table. Following us on Instagram @GKT Podcast, and on the TikToks @Ghoul_Kids_Table. And now my tummy is rumbling. So we are definitely going to get out of here. Michelle, thank you so much for being here and being so open and honest. This was a pleasure for me. Absolute pleasure. You are a wonderful person, and I just want the world for you. But that is going to do it for us, you guys. So, for Michelle Nessk and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And there's always a seat available for you here at the table. Take care, guys.